My name is Hank Daumann. I was born in New York,
Whereabouts?
Brooklyn,
Brooklyn.
and went through school there. When I graduated high school, well, before I graduated, I had intentions of joining the Navy, enlisting in the Navy, but when the war started, I moved that up to right after I graduated to enlist.
When the Korean War started?
Mhm.
So you had already been aware of what was going on in Korea?
Oh yeah.
How did you know?
Well, it was in the papers but I had a girlfriend, well, that's another story. She was an avowed communist. And her father was a big-time surgeon in New York.
Were they American?
Yeah. And she wanted me to join the Communist Party. And I said, no good. But I used to pick her up on a Friday night, and I went to where she was having a meeting, and they had a big thing about the North Korean building some big power dam. And that's how I knew where Korea was.
See, but before this, you had no idea where Korea was?
No.
Nothing.
I mean, it's the same with 90% of the
Right.
country, so.
Right. So, what did you think about what was going on in Korea, the hostility and the war, the
Well, I
outbreak
think
of it?
It wound up to be a very terrible war. I mean, all wars are terrible, but this was more than terrible. There was no quarter given, and since I had intended to enlist anyhow, I enlisted. And I asked for aviation, and they gave it to me, so I was involved with aircraft.
Can you tell me a little bit about what your responsibility was?
Well, my rating was aviation metalsmith, and my rank was airman, but I was also ranked as combat air crewman. Which is a gunner. So I was a gunner in an aircraft. So,
Okay, so you never went to Korea. When did you actually enlist?
1951.
1951. So you were stateside. Where were you being stationed?
Well, I went through boot camp at Bainbridge, Maryland, and then I was transferred to Quonset Point, Rhode Island.
Did you stay there the entire time during the war?
Well, we had flights in different places. You know, we went to war games in Puerto Rico. I was there for 4 or 5 months. Agencia, Newfoundland, but that's about it. My home base was Quonset Point.
Sorry, excuse me. So how did your family react to you enlisting? Were they nervous? Were they scared for you? Were you nervous?
Well, you have to understand, when the Second World War started, the FBI came and arrested my father as an enemy alien and put him in a concentration camp.
Where was your father from?
Germany. And they did that with a whole bunch of Germans and Italians. You know, they advertised about the Japanese being interned, but the Germans, they put them in a concentration camp. And when they finally released him at the end of the war, he kind of left a mark on him, you know. Of course, he didn't do anything. He was a superintendent in an apartment house. And then when I told him I was going to enlist, he wasn't too happy, but he didn't say no.
So you remember this pretty well, your father going through all of this and your family going through this.
Oh, yeah.
So it had a big toll on
It's
your life.
burnt in my mind.
Yeah.
So, and then 1 month after I enlisted, my older brother was drafted into the Army. So, there again, you know, within 30 days or 60 days, both of us were gone from the house. My brother was stationed in Alaska, so.
And during the Korean War as well, during this period. Was he stationed in Korea at all? Did he ever have to go to Korea?
No, he went.
He was.
In fact, he took his boot camp in Maryland, which was almost across the road from where I was taking boot camp. And when I got a liberty, I went over to visit him. He was in Aberdeen. And from there, he got shipped to Alaska and stayed there for his enlistment.
So
His was only 2 years, mine was 4. So.
did you ever engage in any sort of combat at any place, at any point? No? You're one of the lucky ones.
We went looking for submarines.
During your duty, did it impact you in any way personally? So you were there 51, and when did you get out? And you said 4 years, so 55? 54.
Well, 54. I got out early.
Did it impact you in any way? What was going on in Korea?
That what?
With what was going on in Korea and what you were doing stateside?
Well, you know, there was a Marine detachment at Quonset Point, and I got to know a bunch of them, and they were Korean veterans. But personally, no, there was no impact. Of course, I just did my job, and I tried to get transferred to a squadron that was going to Korea. They wouldn't take my transfer.
Why is that? Just for whatever reason. So what were some of the main contributions that you made to aid the war going on in Korea?
Well, the first squadron I was in was a training squadron. We used to fly targets for ships and planes to shoot at. And then I went into a patrol squadron where I became an air crewman, a gunner. So that was my contribution. The first one was considered a training squadron.
So have you ever visited Korea at all? Have you ever been
Yes.
to the country? When did you visit?
Last year.
Last year? For the first time?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, what did you think of it?
I think it's a wonderful country. If the people know that you're a Korean veteran, they treat you so well. They really do. I mean, people stop you in the street and thank you. But they do that here in this community too. So.
I've noticed that. It's a really great community.
Huh?
So I've noticed that. It's a really great community here.
Yes.
Very humble people. So the Korean War was kind of considered a police action. What's your opinion on that?
That's a bunch of bull. If it's a police action, you know, when the war ended, the Veterans of Foreign Wars, the VFW, wouldn't accept Korean veterans. They said it was a police action. And that left a bitter taste in a lot of guys, because they said, well, tell that to the 50,000 guys that aren't coming home. But that's it.
Well, why in your...
They finally changed their policy and did us a favor and let them come in.
Why, in your opinion, is the Korean War often referred to as the Forgotten War?
Well, when the Korean War veterans were coming home, you know, like when I came home, although I wasn't in Korea, they thought I was in school. Nobody, you know, you came home and you went to work. You had a job, or hopefully you had a job. But there was no parades, there was no celebrations or anything like that. Everybody just came home and became civilians.
Do you think it's important for younger generations to understand and know of the contributions and sacrifices made?
Oh, definitely. We have the group, we have a couple of guys in my chapter that go around to schools and tell the kids about the Korean War.
Is it through the Telemerica program?
Excuse me?
The Telemerica program? Do they
No,
go through
it's the Texas Lone Star chapter program.
Okay.
We're an independent organization from the National Korean War Veterans.
I did not know that. How is it? Can you kind of explain to me, like, why are y'all separate? Why is it a different organization?
We didn't like the way they were. We felt that the money that we were sending there could be better put to use in our own programs. So, in fact, I just met the new president, and the first thing he wanted to know is, well, why can't we get together? So, I said, I don't think that's possible. So, we're very independent, but I guess we like the way things are going right now.
How many people do you have in your chapter?
We have 340 on the roster, but there's only like 50 or 60 that are active.
Wow, just so many. What do you think the legacy of the Korean War veterans and the Korean War are?
The legacy?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know, a lot of them, at this stage, a lot of them joke about it being the forgotten war and forgotten, but otherwise, they supported the war, they support the Korean communities and the South Korean government.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, you know, we are very well involved with the Korean community here in Houston, and we feel that we should be part of their celebrations. So we go there. And we have a Consul General that is Consul General Park is a real gentleman, and he's just leaving. His tour is up here in the United States, but he has come to every one of our functions. So, him and his wife.
Sounds like a great guy. Do you think it's important and necessary what we're doing here, trying to conduct these interviews and to reach out to Korean War veterans?
Yes.
Why do you think so?
Because nobody else is doing it. Except for what we do. You know, we go to the memorial services at the VA cemetery here in Houston, or we have our own in July. We have our own ceremony at Bear Creek Memorial Park.
Is there any messages that you would like to share with younger generations? Any tips or anything at all that you'd like for them to know? And
Not particularly.
not particularly.
I feel the younger generation, they don't know anything about the Korean War. They really don't know anything about the war. I mean, if you consider Iraq and Afghanistan, they don't know anything about it. So they're pretty naive.
Mm-hmm.
But then I think so were we before the war started. So, I mean, after the Second World War, everybody thought no more wars and nothing will happen. So I think they're pretty fortunate that they don't have to go.
Okay. Was there anything else that you would like to share? Any memories and messages, anything at all?
I didn't have an important contribution to make.
Every person's contribution was important. It
Well,
was important entirely.
That's my feeling, you know, because I'm in a chapter with the real heroes and the real veterans, and to hear some of their stories, and I say, well, I slept in the bed every night, and I had 3 square meals a day, and these guys lived in the mud and froze, and so they're the real heroes, and they're the ones that should be honored.
We want to honor you as well. Well, thank you so much for coming in
Okay.
and talking to me. I really appreciate it. And it was great to meet you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.